citizen pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, Council is appreciative to have Imam Wood join us, Imam at the Islamic Foundation of Central Ohio, to pray over this council. We are particularly appreciative to have Imam here as we in the holy month of Ramadan. And so thank you for being here on this special day. Imam.
Thank you, Council President Hardin. It is an honor and a privilege to share this space with you once again. I would like to begin to share why I am smiling more than I typically do. Today, an estimated 100,000 Muslims in Central Ohio join the approximately 2 billion Muslims around the world in commemorating the Eid al-Fitr, which is the festival of breaking fast. Today is the culmination of 30 days of abstaining from food and drink from dawn until sunset, standing in prayer late into the night, increasing focus on charitable giving, and engaging in self-reflection and self-development during the sacred month of Ramadan. Today also marks my return to my morning coffee. We are particularly grateful to gather with renewed perspective as the pandemic pain begins to ease. From the dozens of worshipers at the Far East Community Center to the thousands who gathered at the Ohio Expo Center this morning, our mosques and halls were filled in celebration of this joyous day. We began our observance by providing food to the economically vulnerable, a way to ensure that no one is left out. Council President, I know you share this approach in your work here. If it's not for all, then it's not for us. Council members, your work here is critical in ensuring that this universal value is not just an ideal, but an identity, a caring and compassionate Columbus identity that elevates our spirits and our savings, our happiness and our health, our safety and our economic security. In honor of that objective, please join me in prayer. In the name of the compassionate, loving, and uniquely one God, creator and sustainer of all, we turn to you to guide our decisions through your perfect knowledge and vision. We seek the ability to implement our decisions wisely, for you grant all ability. We ask you from your tremendous bounty, for indeed you can do what we cannot, and you know what we know not, and your knowledge encompasses the unseen. Dear God, if you know that our decisions will benefit our spirit and our city today and for posterity, then decree them so, and ease our road, and bless what you bestow. And through your knowledge, protect us from decisions that will dampen our spirit or degrade our city today and for posterity. Reveal goodness to us wherever it is, and with whomever it may be. Grant us contentment with your decree, and bless us and our beloved city. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Imam. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barossa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden. Any person who takes any action to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. Any person who enters those areas of city council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barossa de Padilla, Browns, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing no additions or corrections, the journal is approved. This week's communications received by the City Clerk's Office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the City Bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read into the record?
Yes, President Harden, members of council. The final report of the 2022 Citizens Commission on Elected Official Compensation was filed with the Clerk's Office on April 27, 2022, and will be maintained in the Clerk's General File.
Thank you so much. We'll go around the horn. Are there any resolutions or announcements by members of council? Starting with Councilmember Bankson.
Thank you, President Harden. Only two announcements from me this evening. Just to announce that next Monday at 2 p.m. we will be holding a press conference at the Venture Suites to announce a new exciting city support for an exciting new program. As we have come out the pandemic, I'm really excited about some of the investments that we are making specifically around workforce and training up and upskilling our residents. So looking forward to that press conference. So please tune in, and it'll be streamed via all the usual platforms for Columbus City Council. Second, I would like to acknowledge a very bright young man who has joined us in chambers tonight. True, would you stand up for us up there? He got a VIP seating in the balcony today. So Mr. Trulane Hargrove is currently a senior at the Art and College Preparatory Academy here in Columbus. And last week, I had the pleasure of chatting with Mr. Trulane as part of his senior internship project. He plans to attend Central State University and is interested in majoring in political science. And even after my conversations with him, he still wanted to stick with that major, so I'm excited that I didn't scare him off. I was very impressed with how thoughtful he was when discussing the importance of representing his community and the impact that public service has on the lives of others. I believe he does plan to come back down to council to speak at another time, so I won't put him on the spot this evening, but looking forward to having him address us. And also just want to say congratulations. Whenever we can spotlight and highlight great young men like True that are doing great things in our community and have a heart for his community, we should do that. So thank you for being here and congratulations on everything. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Rosa de Padilla.
Thank you. Sorry. I have one resolution this evening. The month of May celebrates Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Throughout the month, as a community and as a nation, we recognize the innumerable contributions, vibrant cultures, and rich heritage of Asian American and Pacific Islanders. The AAPI community has long played an essential role in writing not only the American story, but the Columbus story as well. From serving our country in uniform, advocating for civil rights, and starting new businesses, the contributions of the AAPI community touches the lives of every one of us. As some of the fastest growing racial and ethnic groups in the country, AAPI communities represent a multitude of ethnicities, languages, and experiences that enrich America and strengthen our state and the Columbus community. As we celebrate AAPI communities, we must also renew our commitment to combating the surge of anti-Asian hate crimes and rhetoric. Last year, we saw a 339% increase in these crimes compared to the year before in cities across America. And these are the cases that we know of. Many other incidences of Asian hate bias, xenophobia, and harassment that surfaced throughout the COVID-19 pandemic were not even reported. We cannot allow these acts to continue to threaten the safety of the AAPI community, especially women, girls, and the elderly. We must continue to work as a community to call out racial injustices of our past and advance equity for all. I look forward to working with my fellow council members in partnership with our AAPI community to continue to learn, invest, and elevate this beautiful community to ensure that Columbus is a welcoming city and that every one of us has an equal opportunity to thrive. I'd like to introduce Jonah Hilario, co-director of the Ohio Progressive Women's Leadership, or OPAL, a grassroots community that organizes for social justice and elevates the voices, visibility, and progressive leadership of Asian American, and Pacific Islander women and non-binary people in Ohio. Jonah.
Good evening. I would like to thank the council for inviting me here today to receive this resolution. I am grateful to Council Member Barroso de Padilla, especially for spearheading this effort for our city to recognize the significant contributions of Asians, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders to the history, culture, and progress of this country. My name is Jonah Hilario. I am an immigrant from the Philippines, a resident of Columbus for the past 17 years, a mother of two, my kids are back there, and current statewide co-director of OPAL, building AAPI Feminist Leadership. Our organization was founded here in Columbus in 2016, and we have grown into a statewide grassroots community of Asian and Asian American and Pacific Islander, or AAPI women, and non-binary people in Ohio. We are a multi-ethnic and multi-generational organization, and our members represent the diverse diaspora from Asia and the Pacific Islands. AAPI serves the fastest growing racial group in the state of Ohio. Statewide, between 2010 and 2020, the Asian population grew by 58.3%, and the Pacific Islander population grew by 44.2%. In Columbus alone, the number of AAPI residents increased by 76%. However, our growing population is not a monolith. We are composed of around 17 distinct ethnicities, with Indian, Chinese, Filipino, Korean, and Japanese being the top 5 in number, and we speak dozens of different languages. We represent people with different national histories, backgrounds, and immigration journeys. We are diverse, but we are connected. Tragically, our connection has recently been one due to our shared experience of increased harassment and racism stemming from harmful anti-Asian rhetoric coming from our country's leaders during the COVID-19 pandemic. I spoke to this body about a year ago to receive the first resolution recognizing May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Our community was then still reeling from the tragic mass shooting in Atlanta that killed 6 Asian women, which was quickly followed by another mass shooting in a FedEx facility in Indianapolis that killed 4 Sikhs. These events were followed by a huge outpouring of vocal support for our communities at different levels of government, business, and society. The hope then was that the increase in awareness would bring about solutions that would keep our community safe and contribute to our thriving. This was not to be. We have continued to see incident after incident of violence against AAPIs, especially against AAPI women and elders all over the country, who have been murdered, beaten, and set on fire. We also continue to hear from our members here in Ohio, who have been harassed, spat on, and cursed at in public for who they are and what they look like. According to Stop AAPI Hate, which tracks anti-Asian hate incidents nationwide, as Councilmember Barroso de Padilla mentioned, anti-Asian hate incidents rose by 339%, and majority of these incidents happened in 2021. In Ohio, 128 incidents were reported that we know of, and then we know it's just the tip of the iceberg. We have been loudly sounding the alarm since the beginning of the pandemic that anti-Asian rhetoric would result in violence and tragedy, a warning that has sadly become a reality. We have continued to appeal to those in power to take action to help us keep our community safe. However, even now in this current election cycle, certain Ohio politicians have chosen to use anti-China rhetoric for political gain, effectively putting targets on the backs of AAPI Ohioans. Our everyday community members will bear the brunt of the anger politicians are whipping up in these political games. History tells us that anti-China rhetoric expands to anti-Asian sentiment. It never stays with its intended target. Politicians on both sides in Ohio are putting our lives in danger. My request of this body and our city remains the same. At the very least, I am asking you all to speak up in support of our community and other communities when you witness our political leaders at all levels of government using xenophobic, fear-mongering language to score political points and votes at the expense of our safety. We also ask that you support our community's efforts for representation in our government. The AAPI Ohio community engaged in advocacy efforts this past year for the creation and funding of a statewide AAPI commission and for the inclusion of AAPI history in public school curriculums. Both these efforts have been denied and delayed. Our city can do its part to ensure that AAPI voices and stories are represented and heard. I commend the city and the county for the Central Ohio Plan for welcoming immigrants and refugees, which includes many initiatives that would benefit our communities. I look forward to seeing the citywide language access policy implemented. I also look forward to a city liaison to our community who can work closely with us to ensure that our issues are uplifted and heard. I also continue to emphasize the need for bystander intervention training for all city employees to equip them with what they need to do when they witness anti-Asian violence and harassment. Like last year, I come with a commitment to continue to care for our communities and to encourage our community to be more politically engaged. We would like to continue to be in conversation with you all and to serve as a resource so we can continue to work towards making Columbus closer to a beloved community so all of us can thrive. Thanks, everybody.
Don't go anywhere. I want to open it up to my colleagues if you have any comments or questions.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Barroso de Padilla, for leading the effort this year to recognize the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. It's so important to take this moment to be thankful for the contributions that you make to our community, and also to reflect on the amazing accomplishments, but also to think about, unfortunately, the struggles that still face the community every single day. And the importance that you brought by what you just said, we want to make sure that you're supported down here, and certainly all of us continue to try to find ways to lift up all communities so that everybody has a voice in the community. So I just wanted to say I appreciate the work and the mission of OPAL, and wish you a very happy AAPI month. And thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember Remy.
Any others? With that, I move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Adopted.
Thank you. And that is all for me, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember. President Pro Tem.
Thank you, Council President. Before I begin, may I ask Paul Rakovsky to come to the podium, please? Tonight, I have Ordinance 755X-2022 to honor, recognize, and celebrate Paul R. Rakovsky for his 32 years of public service and 28 years of service to the City of Columbus. Tonight, this council honors and recognizes Paul Rakovsky for his outstanding service to the city by giving talents, energy, and time toward the betterment of our community through his dedicated service to our city. Paul served in leadership roles with the city's Recreation and Parks Department and Department of Finance and Management, where he provided leadership and guidance to large, complex departments. He led the Columbus Rec and Parks Department as interim director during the pandemic, during which his steadfast leadership and commitment to staff and the community helped the city quickly and safely resume critical services at a time when residents most needed support and found other resources not available. Paul also served as the mayor's appointee to special committees to advance the mayor's efforts to improve the quality of life for residents, including the Columbus City Schools Nominating Committee for District Treasurer and the City Nominating Committee for Fire Chief, as well as served as treasurer and member of the Reeve Avenue Center Board. Paul has used his proven track record in planning, developing, and implementing strategies for financial management, analysis, improving organizational efficiency and effectiveness to ensure the city is a strong steward of the resources entrusted to us by our residents. As the chair of Recreation and Parks Committee, and on behalf of City Council, I have worked closely with Paul for the last several years, and I would like to thank you so much for your contributions to the city over a long career, of course, but particularly what I can vouch for firsthand over these last several years of, as I said, turmoil, change, uncertainty, and we are the better for the leadership that you provided to the department as interim director, and we are the better for the leadership that you provided to the city for these 28 years. So thank you very much for your service. Before I hand the microphone over to you, I will pause to see if anyone else has anything to chime in on. Councilmember Dorans.
Well, Paul, congratulations. I just wanted to say, I got to know you when I was first appointed to the Recreation Parks Commission, and it was amazing for me to see someone with sort of the encyclopedic knowledge of how all the different pieces of the city fit together internally. And that doesn't happen just by virtue of having years in a place. That's by virtue of working with folks to really understand sort of bureaucracy and how that helps people out in the community. So that's something that just struck me my early days working throughout the commission, and certainly something that during my time at council I've always seen in your work. So just thanks for all the years that you put forth trying to make the city a better place.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that and say thank you. I've had the pleasure of working with you with several different hats now, and just wanted to commend your public service and commitment to the residents of Columbus. I saw it every single day, and so thank you for helping me navigate, right, with, as Councilmember Dorn said, the bureaucracy in my many different roles. And so just want to say congratulations on your retirement, and I'm sure that we'll still see you around.
Paul? Oh, sorry, yes.
Sorry, I didn't get my hand up in time.
I know,
apologize.
you
Just want to say
really-
congratulations. We've worked together for a better part of a decade at least, and from finance director to all the other roles that you've played throughout the city, you've been truly an asset to our city, and we thank you for that. I'm looking forward to hearing good fishing tales, and so I wish you much luck and success in your future, and thank you so much for all that you've given to the city.
Wonderful. Paul, the microphone's yours.
I'll be brief. I know you are busy, and as our previous speaker, it speaks to what we talked about earlier, that, public service is such a noble profession, and I think it gets knocked a lot, but that's because we get all the tough problems, the ones that aren't easy to solve, the ones that you have to just continually work and work and work and work to try and solve. But the rewards of doing that are great. I've been humbled over the last couple of weeks just with everybody reaching out, and how blessed you are to be able to stay in one place for as long as I was able to stay, work with all these great people, and do so many really neat things. Never thought I'd build a heliport or a health center or a Linden Community Center or pools or all the other things that I've had the opportunity to do, and I couldn't have done that without some special people. Ty Marsh was a mentor over at the State House when I started, and Vern Reif was the speaker. That's how long ago I started working in the public sector. You come to the city, there was Nancy Roncevich, there was Dave Bush, who was in the LRO. I remember the day I came here to the third floor and handed my resume to a up-and-comer named Christy Angel, another one of my mentors here. And 2 weeks later, I was over at civil service with her mom, becoming an employee of the city. And, I look at Joel Taylor and Rick Pfeiffer and of course, Hugh Dorian, who holds a special place in my heart. It's the person who confirmed to me that doing the right thing the right way matters in what we do. And it's not just where you get to, it's how you get there. And so I just want to thank everyone. Again, younger people, I could say this because now I'm officially much older than any of the members of City Council, and I remember a President Hardin coming in when he was very young to come see his mom when I first started, that it is a noble profession. Do it, sign up, you'll be rewarded in ways that you can never imagine. I had lots of opportunities to do things that would have been more financially lucrative to me, and I'm so glad I never did any of those. My nephew now he's closest that I have to a son. He's a paramedic, and he's out there now for Columbus doing this every day, getting that warm feeling in your heart when you know that you're doing things for people that nobody else would do. And all those great people at Rec and Parks, if they weren't there, those seniors, those kids, they'd have nowhere to go. They'd have no one to help them and no one to take care of them, and that's a noble thing to do. So thank you for all this great opportunity and the blessing.
Thank you so much for those wise words. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I am so sorry.
Thank you so much.
Is there a motion to approve that resolution?
I move for adoption.
I think we have to amend it as well. It's ordinance
I move to
0075X.
amend as submitted to the clerk.
Clerk, is there a second? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Amend it.
And I move for adoption.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Adopt it.
And that's all I have.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's give
Councilmember.
Paul another round of applause. Councilmember Dorrance. All right, Councilmember Favor.
Thank you, Council President Harden. I just want to stand with my colleagues in wishing all of our residents a happy Asian American Heritage Month, encouraging everyone to take some time out throughout the month of May to learn all about the AAPI groups and their vital contributions to the American story. And also, if you're just joining us today, is also Eid, which marks the end of Ramadan, the Muslim holy month of fasting. I'd like to wish all of our residents an Eid Mubarak to all those who are celebrating. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Remy.
This button working. Thank you so much, Council President. I want to take an opportunity to highlight our Cleaner Columbus Community Cleanup event results this past Saturday. Over 150 volunteers came out to Wolf Park to kick off the inaugural Cleaner Columbus Community Cleanup event. Those 150 volunteers going out to various neighborhoods throughout the city resulted in over 400 bags of litter being removed from our streets that equated to about 5,200 pounds of litter. I want to say thank you to all who joined us for this successful cleanup, and thank you especially to my colleagues who made it out with just a couple of some exceptions. Somebody was running a marathon and others were doing very committed in other ways. We want to thank you all for coming out to support the mission. We have many more exciting programs in the works for Cleaner Columbus Initiative this year, and we'll look forward to announcing those very soon. I am also very excited to support the Harmony Project and their Finding Harmony Week. This evening, we have a piece of legislation on consent to support the Harmony Project's ongoing effort to make our community a better place. Did you know, although it's the largest vocal choir of its kind in Central Ohio, you don't have to have the ability to sing in order to be a part of it. You just have to have a commitment to give back to the community. Community service is what it's all about in breaking down social barriers and bridging community divides. This week, ABC Disney, John Legend's production company, and a whole host of others are filming a new pilot for David Brown's Harmony Project. And he has created a week of projects throughout the city. Murals going on. Ask everybody to go to harmonyproject.com to find out more. But they are capping this week off at lower.com field with the largest pop-up choir in Columbus's history. This Saturday, May 7th, from 5:30 to 7, there'll be 20,000 people. Well, there's 1,000 tickets left, so just 1,000 people. So right now there's 19,000, but hopefully those listening can sign up, and they are free. Tickets are free, and they'll join in learning a song in just an hour and then performing to culminate the end of this Finding Harmony Week. So we ask everybody to come on out. I know I'm going to go out there and be a part of history, and so looking forward to that. But thank you very much, Council President. That is all I have this evening.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Remy. Are there any comments by our elected officials? Madam Auditor.
Hey, good evening, Council President, members of council. I have really good news to share with everyone, and that is this week the city has now been officially named the largest city by population in the country to have a AAA rating. It's a huge undertaking for the city and has to be acknowledged. A lot of people go into this process and support this endeavor. Notably, of course, Finance Director Lombardi, certainly Finance Chair Brown, and a lot of city directors take part in these various meetings. They're deep reviews by these rating agencies, but it's a huge undertaking. Largest city in the country now to have a AAA. What does that mean economically? Last week we were in the market with a bond sale, about $400 million. And if we look at comparison deals that same day with another government who was in the market that was notched one below us in terms of our rating, the value to the city, it would have cost us $6.9 million had we been one rating below. So it's a huge achievement, a little economic benefit, obviously, and certainly something to be very proud of. So thank you all.
Thank you, Madam Kilgore, Madam Auditor, and you acknowledged the role of the director and the role of our chair, but certainly the role of the auditor needs to be recognized. I think that deserves a round of applause as well. Thank you for your management. City Attorney's Office, you better have something good to follow that up, man.
Just an additional congratulations. That's a great rating. That's nothing from the City Attorney's Office.
That's awesome. Are there any requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we now have a motion to waive reading of titles of third-day legislation. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read into the record the ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda?
Economic Development, 1153-2022, Public Service and Transportation, Resolution 0061X-2022, Resolution 0065X-2022, Ordinance 1099-22. Finance, Ordinance 1106-2022, Public Utilities, Resolution 62X-2022, Ordinance 168, 1066, 1107, and 1135-2022. Public Safety, Ordinance 853-2022, Zoning, Ordinance 1178-2022, Ordinance 3143-2021, Ordinance 1151, 1177, 1179, 1188, and 1197-2022, Ordinance 1208, 1209-2022, and Ordinance 3144-2021.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The following ordinance appear on our agenda as consent action. Will the clerk now read those into the record?
Economic Development, Ordinance 1061 and 1062-2022, Small and Minority Business, Resolution 63X-2022, Ordinance 1087-2022. Technology Committee, Ordinance 1045 and 1072-2022, Public Service and Transportation, Ordinance 763, 972, 979, 1043, 1090, 1136, and 1160-2022. Neighborhood and Immigrant, Refugee, and Migrant Affairs Committee, Ordinance 1150-2022. Finance Committee, Ordinance 651, 958, 1004, 1022, 1071, 1112, 1119, and 1175-2022. Recreation and Parks, Ordinance 654, 656, 657, 658, 666, 1083, 1120, 1122, and 1129, 2022. Public Utilities, Ordinance 156, 647, 815, 829, 907, 909, 976, 1173-2022. Housing Committee, Ordinance 1088, 1154, 1155, 1156, 1157, 1158, 1159, 1161-2022. Criminal Justice and Judiciary, Ordinance 1109-2022. Health and Human Services, Ordinance 940, 970, 1116-2022. Public Safety, Ordinance 903, 1134, and 1162-2022. Administration, Ordinance 1017, 1093, 1192, 1199, and 1201-2022. Appointments, A105, A107, A108, A109, 110, 111, 112, 113, and A114-2022.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have one speaker on the consent portion of the agenda. Mr. Nate Wilkins is speaking in support of Ordinance 1157-2022. Mr. Wilkins, welcome back to Council.
Arlington Avenue, Mr. Lothain George Wilkins. First of all, let me say I'm in support of this, but I just want to know how this money is going to be used for. Like I said again, I'm in support of this, but for only two reasons. I need for this to be more money up to $791,091.75. So if I can get some clarification, what will this money be used for, and could somebody break that down in parts for me? What is this money going to be utilized for, and what's the time frame of this may be? So again, I will be requesting for more money, $791,075,000. So I just need some clarification and details on this. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. Director, do you have any?
Yeah, thank you, Council President, members of Council. This money is being used to provide mechanical repair and replacement for homeowners that qualify as low income or very low income. We'll follow up with Mr. Wilkins on some more details.
Thank you, Director. Are there any other questions or comments on tonight's consent portion of the agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval by voice? Clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Bangston,
Yes, with the exception of 0651, 0763, 0923, and 0940-2022, from which I am abstaining.
Barroso de Padilla. Brown,
Yes, with the exception of 0972, 0958, 0658, on which I'm abstaining.
Dorns. Yes. Favor,
Yes, with the exception of ordinance 0815-2022 and ordinance 1088-2022, from which I'm abstaining.
Remy,
Yes.
President Harden.
Yes, ordinance are passed with the noted exceptions. We will now proceed with the second reading of 30-day and tabled emergency legislation on tonight's agenda. The first committee to come before council is Economic Development Committee, chaired by Councilmember Bankston. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight in Economic Development Committee for second reading, we have ordinance 0950-2022 to authorize an appropriation of $1 million from the Neighborhood Partnership Capital Fund to authorize the Director of Development to enter into a grant agreement with Columbus Next Generation Corporation to purchase, renovate, or construct real property assets in targeted Central City areas to advance economic and community development initiatives, to authorize the expenditure of $1 million from the Neighborhood Partnership Capital Fund, and to declare an emergency. This is a standard capital dollars appropriation to NextGen for their ongoing economic and commercial development work throughout the city. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage by voice.
Is there a second? Clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Bangston,
Yes.
Barroso de Padilla.
Yes.
Brown. Dorns. Favor. Remy. President Harden.
Yes, ordinance is passed.
All right, next in Economic Development Committee, we have ordinance 1039-2022 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into an enterprise zone agreement with Alum Creek 1 LLC, doing business as Fed 1 Dublin LLC and Specialized Bicycle Components, Inc., for a tax abatement of 75% for a period of 10 consecutive years, in consideration of the company's proposed capital investment of $28 million in real property improvements, creation of 10 net new full-time permanent positions with an estimated annual payroll of approximately $400,000, and retention of 56 full-time positions with an annual payroll of approximately $2,200,016. This ordinance represents a partnership that is comprised of members of Fed 1 Dublin LLC, who will serve as the sponsor entity that invests directly in and oversees the development of this project. They are proposing to invest a total project cost of approximately $28 million in real property investments to construct an approximately 461,700 square foot Class A industrial facility at 3330 Alum Creek Drive. Over the last 20 years, Fed 1 has constructed nearly 13 million square feet of industrial space here in Central Ohio. Specialized Bicycle Components, Inc., commonly referred to as Specialized Bicycles, will lease the new industrial facility to expand and relocate its operations from Groveport, Ohio. Specialized Bicycles is a company that designs, manufactures, and markets bicycles, electric bicycles, bicycle components, and apparel. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage at this time.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barroso de Padilla. Brown. Dorns. Favor. Remy. President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And the last ordinance in the Economic Development Committee this evening is 1040-2022. And as I read this ordinance, I'm going to ask that Brian Reichlich with Simpson Strong-Tie come to the podium. This ordinance authorizes the Director of Department of Development to enter into an enterprise zone agreement with Simpson Manufacturing Company, Incorporated, doing business as Simpson Strong-Tie Company, Inc., for a tax abatement of 75% for a period of 10 consecutive years, in consideration of the company's proposed capital investment of $14 million in real property improvements and the creation of 125 net new full-time permanent positions with an estimated annual payroll of approximately $5,203,983 and the retention of 374 full-time permanent positions with an estimated annual payroll of $20,840,277. Council colleagues, Simpson Strong Tie Company, Inc. is looking to expand its current Columbus-based operations through the aforementioned enterprise zone agreement. Headquartered in Pleasanton, California, this company is a leader in designing, engineering, and manufacturing wood construction projects. Simpson Strong Tie proposes to invest a total in this project of $25 million, which includes $14 million in real property improvements, $6 million in acquisition costs, and $5 million in machinery and equipment to construct approximately 305,000 square feet of Class A flex industrial facility that is an addition, to their existing site at 2600 International Street. Here in chambers this evening to speak more about this project and really the process of how this came about is Mr. Brian Reichlich. Did I get that right? Reichlich, okay. He's the Vice President of Simpson Strong Tie Company, Inc. The floor is yours, sir. And I wanted to have him come speak specifically, but because when we talk about economic development, this is the type of story that we're talking about, this retention of this many jobs and gaining new jobs. But we wanted to really talk about your process and how you all got there.
Sure. Thank you. I want to start off by thanking the council and the mayor and the development team for helping bring this project to fruition. Simpson Strong Tie, as was mentioned earlier, we manufacture construction products for the residential, commercial, and industrial and infrastructure type projects. We opened up in Columbus in 1990. We opened the facility, a manufacturing facility on the west side of Columbus. We expanded that building twice, and we've kind of reached our maximum capacity at this point, where we didn't have enough office space, parking, manufacturing space, or warehouse space. So about 4 years ago, we started looking at what our options were for expansion. We were landlocked, so there was not an opportunity at that time for us to expand. And we started the process of looking in other areas outside of the city of Columbus, just because there's not a lot of real estate that could facilitate a project the size that we were looking. So we started that process. Eventually, some land became available directly behind us. This was about a year and a half ago. So we started looking into that to see and do some due diligence to see if that was possible. During that time, we have continued to see, really unprecedented growth from not only from a business standpoint, but employee hiring. We've switched over to 3 shifts now of production. And as I mentioned, we manufacture construction products for an industry that's really booming at this point. So that's a little bit about how we got to where we are. Our proposal is we're in the planning stages of we currently have a 290,000 square foot footprint as it speaks. We're going to add 300,000 square feet of additional warehouse space, which allows us to double our production space, again, more jobs. That'll create a lot more production jobs, double our warehouse space, and then also office support as well, because we also have a full staff of employees that support the business as well. So I just want to thank you all for this opportunity. The support that the city has provided to us really helped keep us where we are. We didn't want to have to move outside of the city, but that was just because of land and availability. But this helped to really bring this project and get ultimate approval from our board to make this investment. So
absolutely. Are there any questions for my colleagues? All right, thank you, sir. And I just wanted to reiterate and point out, when we talk about economic development, and there's certain narratives that go on, but I don't know about you all around this dais, but when I think about potentially losing 374 jobs, and those are folks' families that we're talking about, not just simply numbers on a spreadsheet, but the gain of additional 125 jobs, I'm glad that those jobs are in the city of Columbus. So thank you for investing, but also want to thank Director Stevens and his team because every thing that we look at is on an individual project basis. And his team puts in the analysis, they put in the work, and I think the results speak for themselves. So thank you so much for staying in Columbus and expanding and continuing to invest in our city. And with that, Council President, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And Council President, may I move on to the Technology Committee?
Please.
Tonight in Technology, for second reading, we have Ordinance 1084-2022 to authorize the Director of the Department of Technology to enter into contract with SHI International Corporation for the purchase of Cloudflare core services in the amount of $53,932.58 to waive relevant provisions of Columbus City Code pertaining to competitive bidding, to authorize the expenditure of $53,932.58 from the Information Services Operating Fund for the above described purpose, and to declare an emergency. Council members, as mentioned, this ordinance authorizes the Director of Department of Technology to enter into a contract with SHI International for the purchase of Cloudflare core services. The Cloudflare is DOT's external domain name system, DNS, provider and a provider of custom certificates. The Department of Technology is asking to waive competitive bidding for two reasons. The bid was published as an informal bid since the services being procured were estimated to be under $50,000 at that time, and there was only one responder that they received through that process, and it surpassed the $50,000 threshold for a formal bid requiring the department to request a waiver of competitive bidding to move forward. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
All right, thank you, Council President. That's all we have in our committees this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to recognize, I see my former colleague and Judge Paley is in chambers tonight. Welcome back to council. The next committee to come before council is the Public Service and Transportation Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Barosa de Padilla. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I have three ordinances today in public service. First, 0905-2022 to authorize the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract modification with Decker Construction Company in connection with resurfacing 2020 Project 2 project to authorize the expenditure of up to $330,004.75 from Fund 6500, the Mobility Operating Fund, and to declare an emergency. I have a big announcement. The City of Columbus will be replacing parking meters with mobile and kiosk payments for a simpler way to park. Meter removal will begin in the Brewery District, then move north through downtown and into the Short North. So the installation starts this Tuesday with kiosks in the Brewery District, and then it moves north for a total installation time of about 3 weeks, weather permitting. And the implementation of the University District will occur by the end of May. So Park Columbus has already begun changing signage to alert residents to the locations of the kiosks and how to pay. So residents will be able to utilize the kiosks that we're installing, the Park Columbus mobile app. If you don't have it, you can download it, a QR code if you are that savvy, or you can text to pay or call to pay. So there's many, many options for you to pay to park. Gallery Hop, as we all know, is coming up next weekend. There are going to be helpers in the Short North to inform folks if they are going through street parking. Before I move on, I know that Deputy Director Bishop is here. Is there anything you want to add about the parking or the new kiosks that we will be installing around the city?
I think you did a great job of explaining what's happening. We're really excited about this new way to pay and getting the kiosk rolled out into the community. Thank you, Councilmember Barosa de Padilla.
Awesome. So this ordinance, so that's the big announcement. This ordinance specifically is not as interesting because this ordinance is so that we can actually remove the parking posts and put concrete foundation pads for the parking kiosks in the designated locations around the city. But we did want to alert folks of the changes that are happening. So if you are like me and don't know what cash looks like anymore, and you often use your phone, or handy dandy, this is a way that it can remind you, if you are like me and forget how much time you put on your meter, this is a way to ensure that you are keeping up with your parking wherever you may park around the city. So are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Great. So with that, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Next is 0939-2022 to authorize the Director of Finance and Management to enter into contract with Cargill Incorporated to purchase an AccuBrine NXT Gen Brine Maker to improve the roadways of Columbus during the winter months, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of City Code Chapter 329, to authorize the expenditure of $215,834 from the Street Construction Maintenance and Repair Fund and to declare an emergency. So as folks may know, the Division of Infrastructure Management uses brine to treat our roadways during the winter seasons. So this ordinance is so that as the equipment that we currently have reaches its end of life, it's in the department's best interest to replace the same equipment being installed at our newer locations and outposts throughout the city. So the purchase of this brine will help to standardize all of that equipment. Questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Ordinance 1114-2022 to authorize the city attorney to file complaints in order to immediately appropriate and accept the remaining fee, simple, and lesser real estate necessary to timely complete the FRA State Route 161 at Carl Road project, to authorize the expenditure of $5,102 from existing ACD 001515 and to declare an emergency. So the city's acquisition of the real estate is located in the Northland Columbus Community Planning Area. This safety portion of the project will add a mini roundabout and median along the northern approach of the intersection of Carl Road with 161 and to install pedestrian facilities along the roadway. So this will help to make, improve, or repair certain portions of the public right-of-way, which will be open to public use without charge. Questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Gracias. That's all for me this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee coming before council is the Finance Committee, chaired by Pres Pro Tem. Pres Pro Tem, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Council President. In Finance tonight, we have Ordinance 914-2022 to authorize the Finance and Management Director to establish a purchase order with SA Communal Company Incorporated for annual smoke and fire alarm testing, inspection, and repair, as well as sprinkler inspections, fire pump testing, fire suppression testing for the Facilities Management Division in accordance with the terms and conditions of a pending State of Ohio Master Maintenance Agreement, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $150,000 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. Due to the critical nature of fire inspection services required by the Division of Facilities Management, this emergency request waives the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code to continue the relationship with the existing provider until February 19th, 2023. While the city is currently preparing a best value procurement process to competitively select a future service provider, this purchase order with SA Communal is intended to continue existing services until that procurement process is completed. And the Facilities Management Division budgeted $250,000 in the 2021 general fund budget for these services, of which $150,000 will be used towards maintaining these services. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And my final ordinance in finance is Ordinance 929-2022 to authorize the Finance and Management Director on behalf of the Real Estate Management Office to pay rent associated with 6 lease agreements for office space and 4 internal memorandum of understanding for the 22-23 term. to authorize the appropriation of $1,397,877 and the expenditure of $919,554 from the Special Income Tax Fund, and to authorize the amendment and extension of the lease agreement the city has with YTD Sinclair Road, LLC. 4 of the lease agreements and the MOU agreement have automatic renewal options that are subject to appropriation and funding by council for payment of associated rents. And in addition, this legislation, in authorizing the director to execute the Second Amendment lease agreement with YTD, would extend the term for 5 consecutive terms of 1 year each, beginning August 1st, and then amend other related terms as necessary. This legislation is presented as an emergency measure in order for the city's occupancy of these office locations to continue uninterrupted and allow for the timely payment of rent associated with these leases. Any questions or comments from colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage by voice.
Clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Bangston,
Abstain.
Barosa de Padilla,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Yes, ordinance is passed.
That's all I have in Finance Committee. I know there is one other item I believe Vice Chair Bankston has.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last ordinance in finance this evening is Ordinance 0983-2022 to authorize the Director of the Department of Finance and Management to enter into contract with the Greater Columbus Arts Council, Inc. for the purposes of distributing 2022 admission tax proceeds to provide funding for grants to artists and arts organizations that serve as the foundation for the city's profile as a vibrant, inclusive city, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of proceeds from the Creation, Innovation, and Inclusion Fund, anticipated to be $6 million, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes a $6 million payment to the Greater Columbus Arts Council out of the Creation, Innovation, and Inclusion Fund. GCAC will in turn distribute those funds via grants to artists. Much of the focus will be on emerging artists and furthering art education within Columbus neighborhoods that have traditionally had disparate or inequitable access to arts. These funds come from the admissions tax that is levied on events outside of Nationwide Arena, which was proposed by council in December of 2019. The tax had an effective date of July 2020, which obviously came in the midst of a pandemic, and the revenue for 2020 and 2021 reflects that. With that being said, we are excited because we have seen an outstanding rebound in our arts and entertainment venues this year, and we're thrilled to be able to support our arts community with this additional resources. Are there any comments or questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage by voice.
Clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Bangston,
Yes.
Barosa de Padilla,
Yes.
Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Yes, ordinance is passed.
That concludes the Finance Committee, Council President.
Thank you. Chairs. The next committee to come before council is the Public Utilities Committee, chaired by Councilmember Dorans. Councilmember, floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. First, in the Public Utilities Committee, I have Ordinance 0879-2022 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with Driven Excavating LLC for the Division of Sewerage and Drainage, Meekland Drive, Sanitary Sewer, Meekland Drive, Stormwater Improvements, inclusive of project-related paving work funded by the Department of Public Service, to authorize the appropriation and transfer of $1,165,674 from the Storm Sewer Reserve Fund to the OWDA Storm Sewer Loan Fund, to authorize the appropriation and transfer of $941,737.20 from the Sanitary Sewer Reserve Fund to the OWDA Sanitary Loan Fund, to authorize expenditure of up to $1,165,674 from the OWDA Storm Sewer Loan Fund, to authorize expenditure of up to $941,737.20 from the OWDA Sanitary Loan Fund, to authorize the expenditure of up to $40,174.20 from the Streets and Highways Bond Fund, to authorize the transfer within the expenditure of for prevailing wage service to the Department of Public Services of up to $1,000 from the Storm Sewer Bond Fund, to authorize the authorize the expenditure of $1,000 from the sanitary bond fund for the prevailing wage service of the Department of Public Service and to amend the 2021 capital improvement budget. The sanitary portion of this project will extend over 3,200 feet of sanitary sewer service on the Meekland Drive to service an area that is currently served by home treatment systems, which will be eliminated due to the potential groundwater pollution hazard to Olentangy River. The storm sewer project will mitigate street flooding and reduce roadside drainage issues as well. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? See none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have Ordinance 0891-2022 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to execute a plan modification to the 2020-2022 Construction Administration Inspection Service Agreement with DLZ Ohio, Inc. for the joint Division of Sewers and Drainage, Water, Moeller Street Overflow Intercepting Sewer, Water Line Relocation Project for the Division of Water's 12-inch water main relocation project to authorize transfer and expenditure of up to $1,218,978.99 within the Sanitary General Obligation Fund to authorize expenditure of up to $104,459.58 within the Water General Obligations Fund and to authorize an amendment to the 2021 capital improvements budget. The Division of Sewers and Drainage project includes the rehabilitation, repair, and construction of sewers and construction of green infrastructure, the majority of which will reduce inflows and infiltration to the city's sanitary sewer system, thus mitigating overflows in basements and waterways. The Division of Water project will include the replacement and rehabilitation of water lines that have a high break frequency and valves that are inoperable, which will improve water service and decrease burdens on our maintenance staff and reduce water loss. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have Ordinance 0906-2022 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to modify and extend the contract with Intellix Technologies to provide for software support service to upgrade the Intellix system, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the City Code, and to authorize the expenditure of $0 from the Sanitary Sewer Operating Fund, Water Operating Fund, Power Operating Fund, and Stormwater Operating Fund. Intellix is a system used by the Department of Public Utilities to track documents and keep workflow compliant. The software will be needed to upgrade in the future, and this is an annual subscription fee paid for. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have Ordinance 0931-2022 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to waive the competitive bidding provisions of City Code to renew a contract with AEP T&D Services LLC for the purpose of providing training services related to Journeyman Electrical Apprenticeship Program. The training and employee retention is one of the division's primary goals for 2022 and beyond. It has been determined that there needs to be hands-on journeyman training for our field crews in order to retain employees to be better prepared for the cross functions of this job. After reviewing several outside training programs, AEP was found to offer the most comprehensive 2 to 5 year program for these professionals. This new program was the direct result of employees of the Division of Power asking for more industry-specific training. In addition to increasing our line workers' knowledge and proficiency in the field, this training opens the door for both overhead and underground crews to cross-train and potentially move into a single job class into the future. Providing this type of training is becoming more and more common within the industry. AEP and Westerville Municipal Electric both supply this training to their employees. It also gives us another tool as we seek to recruit and train quality employees here at the city. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage by voice.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Bangston,
Abstain.
Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 0933-2022 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to modify and increase a professional engineering services agreement with Bribre Engineering Group, Inc. for the Dublin Road Water Plant Miscellaneous Improvements, Basin Clarifier Rehabilitation Project for the Division of Water, to authorize the transfer and appropriation of expenditure of up to $2,300,000 within the Water Pay-Go Fund, and authorize an amendment to the 2021 capital improvement budget. This project will address the aging assets in the water treatment basins at the Dublin Road Water Plant. These assets are critical to the successful treatment of drinking water in that facility. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance number 0951-2022 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to modify an existing professional service engineering agreement with Arcadis U.S. Inc. for the Jackson Pike Wastewater Treatment Plant Cogen project, and appropriate and transfer of, and expend up to $1,907,793 from the Sanitary Sewer Pay-Go Fund 6116, and to amend the 2021 capital improvement budget for the Division of Sewers and Drainage. This project provides design work to install a cogen system that will use the Jackson Pike wastewater treatment plant's biogas, currently being burned as off flares right now as a waste product, to create large amounts of electricity. Preliminary reports show a savings in electrical costs, which will help to offset the capital operating costs of the improvement. The system will also reduce overall greenhouse gas emissions by more than 4,000 tons a year of equivalent CO2, which also will help protect the water quality in the Scioto River area as well. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
And finally, we have ordinance 0975-2022 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities renew and increase the professional engineering service agreement with Hill International, Inc. for the Professional Construction Management Services 2018 project for the Division of Water, to authorize the transfer and expenditure of up to $3,931,400 within the Water General Obligation Bond Fund, and to amend the 2021 capital improvement budget. This contract will support various projects in the Division of Water capital program, which will maintain and upgrade drinking water supply and treatment facility to provide a safe, reliable water supply for Central Ohio. The consultant team has identified a commitment to the Mayor's Green Initiative in their business practices, and will be involved in applying the department's environmental management system to the construction projects, the subject of this ordinance. Do all my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And with that, that's all we have in DPU tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Criminal Justice and Judiciary Committee, chaired by Councilmember Favor. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Tonight, we have ordinance 1108-2022 to authorize the transfer of $448,723.45 between departments within the general fund from the Department of Finance and Management to the Franklin County Municipal Court, to authorize the transfer of $483,638 between divisions within the general fund from the Department of Finance and Management, Financial Management Division, to the Finance and Management Citywide Technology Division, to authorize the transfer of $174,657.90 between the departments from the Department of Finance General Fund to the Department of Technology Information Services Fund, to authorize the appropriation of $483,638 within the Department of Technology Information Services Fund, to authorize the appropriation of $174,657.90 within the Department of Technology Information Services Fund, and to declare an emergency. The court's technology needs have substantially increased over time with the growth of staff, programs, changes to operating procedures due to the pandemic, and the need to become compliant with new technology standards set by the Ohio Supreme Court. Additionally, the court is moving toward a paperless environment, making the importance of current, reliable, and up-to-date technology and the support of that technology essential to court operations. These funds will help support the court's critical need to establish an on-site technology staff who will be responsible for managing hardware and software. I believe I saw Judge Skinner. Would you like to make any comments at this time? You don't have to. It's up to you, sir.
Good evening.
Good
Thank you
evening.
for having us. I also have Judge Pearley here with me. So, good evening, Council President Harding and members. The court has been collaborating with the city's Department of Technology and Finance and Management to create a technology network and resources for the court. This legislation will provide the necessary funding to support reliable, secure, and robust information technology for the services that our court desperately needs. The court will utilize a portion of this funding to support infrastructure as a service agreement with the City Department of Technology. This agreement will allow the court to leverage existing city technology investments, which will provide the court with top-of-the-line network and technology resources, but it also saves taxpayer money. Additionally, the court will be utilizing a portion of this funding to hire necessary staff in order to create an internal IT department within our court. This department will work to support the technology needs of the judges and our staff, and which will also enhance the efficiency of the court and the overall quality of services that we have to provide to the public. So this court would like to thank City Council Member Favor, City Finance Director Lombardi, Technology Director Orth, and all of the other important people who was a part of this process. This new technology department and infrastructure agreement will truly bring this court to the 21st century. So we do thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions, comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I'd move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Council President, may I move on to Health and Human Services?
Please.
Thank you. Up next, we have Ordinance 913-2022 to authorize the Director of Development to enter into a not-for-profit services contract with Impact Community Action in an amount up to $312,978, to authorize the expenditure of up to $177,978 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. The Build-Up Program is a 5-week introductory construction trades training program. Central Ohio is growing rapidly and is predicted to double in size by 2050. There is a labor shortage that must be addressed with immediate training and pipeline programs for students. This funding will help Impact expand the Build-Up Program and serve more residents. Are there any questions or comments by my colleagues? Seeing none, I'd move for passage.
Madam Chair, got to remove it from the
Oh,
table.
I'm sorry. And move it from the table. I apologize.
Second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Removed.
And now I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have Ordinance 923-2022 to authorize the Board of Health to enter into a contract with Nationwide Children's Research Institute, modify said contract if portions of previously appropriated and encumbered funds are unused, and reallocate unused funds by entering into contracts with newly identified and qualified vendors without the need for additional legislation for the Ending the HIV Epidemic Grant Program for the provision of services allowable under the grant for persons with HIV or AIDS in Central Ohio, to authorize the expenditure of $86,029 from the Health Department Grants Fund to pay the cost thereof, to waive competitive bidding provisions by the City Code Chapter 329, and to declare an emergency. The Ending the HIV Epidemic Program from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources Services Administration is intended to focus resources in areas with substantial HIV burden to reduce new HIV infections in the United States. Columbus Public Health will partner with the Research Institute at Nationwide Children's Hospital to provide delivery of Ending the HIV Epidemic services, including the health education, risk reduction, peer navigation, and EHE, health insurance navigation, to achieve a viral suppression for individuals living with HIV. Are there any additional questions or comments by my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Bangston,
Abstain.
Barosa de Padilla,
Yes.
Brown, Dorans,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Remy, President Harden.
Yes. Ordinance is passed.
Thank you. That's all I have in my committees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee coming for council is the Environment Committee, chaired by Councilmember Remy. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Council President Harden. Tonight, I have Ordinance 1104, 2022, to authorize the Director of the Department of Finance and Management to enter into a nonprofit service contract with Impact Community Action for implementation of the Empowered Program, a new clean energy jobs program and neighborhood energy efficiency measures, to authorize the transfer of $3 million from the general fund to the Sustainable Columbus Fund, to authorize the appropriation of $3 million within the Sustainable Columbus Fund, to authorize the expenditure of $2,756,092 from the Sustainable Columbus Fund, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes the Finance and Management Director to enter into a nonprofit service agreement with Impact Community Action to implement the Empowered Program and support energy-efficient, sustainable neighborhoods in line with the city's Columbus Climate Action Plan. Empowered is a new clean energy jobs program geared towards Columbus residents age 18 to 24. The program will provide training and on-the-job experience for careers in the clean energy sectors and focus on recruiting participants from communities of color and women in opportunity neighborhoods. These services cannot be provided by current city employees. Funding will support 3 cohorts of program participants over the next year, providing training to establish the skills and knowledge needed to be a competitive candidate for full-time employment within the clean energy sector. Training will also highlight career exploration, digital literacy, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and wraparound services. Additionally, empowered participants will receive on-the-job experience as energy advocates, helping residents navigate and better understand energy efficiency and the range of energy programs available to them. They will also perform low-level energy audits and simple energy upgrades, such as LED bulb replacement. Participants will be paid $17 per hour as energy advocates and receive compensation for their training. Upon completion of the program, empowered graduates will be placed in pre-apprenticeships or apprenticeships or directly employed in fields such as weatherization, construction, utilities, solar installation, and manufacturing. The Empowered program will advance both the Climate Action Plan, the Columbus Climate Action Plan, and environmental justice by supporting those communities most impacted by climate change. This funding will also support the expansion of Impact's Weatherization Assistance Program, which will provide home energy conservation assistance, including housing unit inspections, attic, wall, and basement insulation, and access to energy-efficient applications to help lower home energy costs and reduce environmental pollutants for customers who are between 200 and 300% of the federal poverty level. The funding also includes support for energy-efficient appliances upgrades for traditional those below 200% of the federal poverty level. Excuse me. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues this evening? Seeing none, I move to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Okay, it's amended now. Okay. Now I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Ordinance 1117, 2022, to authorize the Director of Finance and Management to associate all general budget reservations resulting from this ordinance with the appropriate universal term contract purchase agreement for automated side-loading refuse trucks for the Division of Refuse Collection with Truck Country of Indiana, doing business as Stoops Freightliner, to authorize the expenditure of up to $3,400,248 from the Refuse General Fund for those trucks, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes the Director of Finance and Management on behalf of the Director of Public Service to associate all general budget reservations resulting from this ordinance with the appropriate universal term contract purchase agreement for the purchase of 8 compressed natural gas automated side-loading refuse trucks. This purchase has been approved by the Division of Fleet Management. The Department of Public Service, Division of Refuse Collection, uses side-loading refuse trucks and citywide residential trash pickup. The Department of Public Service and Fleet Management recognize the need to replace older trucks in its fleet beyond the useful life of the vehicle. This purchase will replace 8 refuse trucks that have reached the end of their useful service life: 4 auto cars, a CX64 Labry 20 CNG automated side loading refuse trucks and 4 Autocar ACX64 Labrie automated side loading refuse trucks. The following purchase agreement association requires approval by council in order for the division to expend more than $100,000. Truck Country of Indiana doing business as Stoops Freightliner Universal Contract Purchase Agreement is under Ordinance 3096/2021. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues?
I don't know. Is there a second?
Well, at first I was asking for questions.
Sorry.
We'll get to the motion. Any questions? Okay. All right, then I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
And that is all I have in the Environment Committee. I do have one for the Administration Committee from the floor.
Yep.
This is a companion piece to those that we had ordained in the consent agreement earlier. And so I have Ordinance 1202/2022, a companion piece of this. There were 2 others that we passed on the consent agenda earlier. This is Ordinance 1202/2022 to amend Ordinance number 2715/2013, the Police Management Compensation Plan by amending Section 4A and to declare an emergency. This ordinance amends the Police Management Compensation Plan, Ordinance number 2715/2013, as amended to adjust the pay structure by 2 1/10% in order to remain competitive in the market. Emergency action is necessary to timely implement the proposed amendments. Whereas it is necessary to amend the Police Management Compensation Plan to adjust the pay structure by 2 1/10% to remain competitive with the market, and whereas an emergency exists in the usual daily operation of the city, and that it is immediately necessary to amend certain provisions of the Police Management Compensation Plan, thereby preserving the public peace, property, health, safety, and welfare. Before moving for passage, I'd like to ask Director Brandon to speak to the ordinance and the reason for bringing it from the floor this evening. Director Brandon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden and Councilmember Remy, members of council. Really, you said everything. We do these ordinances annually. They are to ensure that we remain consistent and competitive in the market, and it does make sense to move all 3 of them forward at the same time. There are 3 MCP or management compensation plans. One represents civilian employees, one represents the fire executive level, and one represents police executives. And so we wanted to ensure that they were all 3 processed at the same time. I appreciate you putting this forward on the floor. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Director Brandon. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues this evening? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That is all I have this evening.
Thank you. Seeing no further business coming before council, is there a motion to adjourn? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Meeting is adjourned. We have
Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, President Harden.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, Dorans, favor, Remy, President Harden.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing no additions or corrections, the journal is approved. We'll now go to the zoning committee. Councilmember Dorn chairs the committee. All members serve on it. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Before beginning tonight's zoning agenda, just a little housekeeping. Will the clerk please read the numbers of legislation in the zoning committee this evening that requires waiver of second reading?
1113-2022, 3370-2021, 1094-2022, and 1096-2022.
Thank you, Clerk. At this time, I'd like to move to waive second reading on those agenda items.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, President Harden.
Thank you. Now, before we begin the zoning agenda itself, allow me to briefly explain the rules pertaining to speaking before council on rezoning and council variances. As a reminder, we will only hear staff presentations for ordinances that have disapproval from a recommending body, or if we have public speakers signed up to speak against the ordinance. We have one public speaker slip this evening for a variance. All speakers on council variances, including city staff, area commissioners, applicants, and members of the public, will be sworn in before they give testimony. Representatives of an area commission and applicants are always able to speak on an ordinance and do not need to fill out a speaker slip. On the advice of the city attorney's office, I will now swear in city staff. Please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the pains or penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do. I do. Thank you. Let the record please show that Shannon Pine from the Department of Building and Zoning Services and Dan Bleshmet from the Department of Public Service have been sworn in. First, tonight, we have a rezoning 0195-2022 to rezone 3855 Alcride Road, being 23.67 plus acres located on the southwest corner of Alcride Road, a southwestern road from the PUD 6 plan unit development district and LAR 12 limited apartment district to PUD 6 plan unit development district and LAR LD limited apartment residential district. The applicant is Acolyte Woods, LLC, care of Jill Tangeman, attorney. The proposed use is a multi-unit residential development. The city's department recommendation is approval. The Development Commission's recommendation is approval 5-0. Greater Hilltop Area Commission recommendation is approval 13-0. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move to amend to emergency by voice.
Second.
Amend it. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Browns, Dorans, favor, Remy, President Harden. Yes,
Amend it.
I did say that.
Council President, we need to amend that by voice. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do we need to call it again?
Yeah, Bangston,
Abstain.
Barosa de Padilla,
Yes.
Brown, Dorans,
Yes.
favor,
Yes.
Remy, President Harden.
Yes. Amend it.
Thank you, Council President. Now I'd like to move for passage by voice, please.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Bangston,
Abstain.
Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans,
Yes.
favor, Remy, President Harden.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 1113-2022 to rezone 3925 South Hamilton Road, being 4.12 plus acres located 250 feet west of South Hamilton Road alongside of Braylon Drive from LC4 Limited Commercial District to LM Limited Manufacturing District. The applicant is Cardinal Self-Storage LLC, care of Jill Tangeman, attorney. Proposed use is a self-storage facility. The department's recommendation is approval. The Development Commission recommendation is approval 501. The Greater Southeast Area Commission recommendation is approval, and it was unanimous. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. We will now move into the council variances portion of the committee hearing. First, we have variance 3370-2021 to grant a variance in provisions of section 3333.02 AR 12, ARLD, and AR1 apartment residential district use of the Columbus City Code. So the property located at 1765 Blake Road to permit a 3-unit dwelling ARLD apartment residential district. The applicant is Ferris Development, care of Brenda Parker, agent. The proposed use is a 3-unit dwelling. The city's department recommendation is approval. The North Central Area Commission's recommendation is disapproval, 7-1. Due to that disapproval, we will now have a staff presentation. Ms. Pine?
Good evening. The site consists of 6 undeveloped parcels zoned in the ARLD apartment residential district. The requested council variance will allow the development of 3 2-unit dwellings on 3 proposed new lots. A council variance is necessary because the ARLD apartment residential district only permits a 2-unit dwelling when the lot meets specific platting requirements established by section 3333.055 of the Columbus City Codes. Although the North Central Plan recommends single-unit residential land uses for this location, staff supports the increased density as the site has frontage along Joyce Avenue, which is a major corridor, and because the existing zoning would permit an apartment house with up to 15 units. The proposed dwellings are consistent with the established development pattern along Joyce Avenue. This request will not introduce an incompatible use to the surrounding neighborhood. Therefore, the city department's recommendation is for approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pine. Do my colleagues have any questions? Thank you. I believe the agent for the applicant is here tonight, but I don't believe that they have requested to speak at this point. Seeing head nods in the back, we will move on. Also, I do want to note before we move on here, my staff and I have been working on this ordinance for a while, and I want to thank the city staff, the North Central Area Commission, the Argyle Park Civic Association for their time and effort in this conversation. Whenever we see a disapproval from an area commission, one of the things that my office tries to do is to work with the area commission and the applicants to see if there's any common ground to be found here. I think we had some very productive discussions. I want to thank Councilmember Favor and her staff for being part of those discussions with the North Central Area Commission and the Argyle Park Civic. I think predominantly, and certainly not to speak for the Area Commission or the Civic themselves, but I think we identified some significant concerns regarding owner-occupied versus rental use development within their neighborhood. Some concerns regarding the ability for local residents to access land bank properties, and I think we have some ongoing discussions with again, Councilmember Favor, myself, others, the Land Bank, Land Trust, and others, I think to bring some of the things that certainly the Civic Association and Area Commission have significant interest in seeing development have a element of within the part of the city. Those concerns are certainly extremely valid. However, they do fall outside of the zoning committee itself, but I think that's why an issue like this requires council members to step forward and work with the neighborhood groups to see what we can do to push those things forward. I'm very confident that that dialogue will continue, but I do think at this time it is ready to bring this variance forward. So I do want to pause and see if my colleagues have any questions or comments. And I do want to acknowledge Chair Tiffany White from the North Central Area Commission is here with us tonight, but she has not requested to speak. Seeing none, I now move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Accept it.
Next, I move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Adopt it.
And finally, I move for passage.
Chair, I just want to again applaud you. This is another zoning variance that took a lot of work, both in City Hall and in the community, and again, to bring us into process. Every week we talk, and this variance came up in every one of our conversations. You told me about the engagement of Chair Favor. You told me about your conversation and the work you did out in the community with the Commissioner White. And I'm just grateful that the process worked. And even tonight, Councilmember Favor said, but there's still work to do after this in the community. So I just appreciate your leadership and certainly leadership of the commission to move this forward. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. Next, we have variance 0990-2022 to grant a variance provisions of section 3332.035 R3 Residential District and 3312.49C, minimum number of parking spots required at the Columbus City Codes, the property located at 1816 Oak Street, to permit a hair salon with reduced parking in the R3 Residential District, Council variance CV 21-050. The applicant is Kieran Smith, architect. The proposed use is to convert a detached residential garage into a commercial hair salon. The department's recommendation is approval. The Near East Area Commission recommendation is approval 12-0. This ordinance was on our agenda at our last meeting. We had 2 public speakers against it. One of those speakers has returned this evening. So at this time, I will ask for a staff presentation. Ms. Pine?
The site consists of one parcel developed with a single-unit dwelling in the R3 residential district. The requested council variance will permit the existing detached garage to be converted into a 440-square-foot hair salon. A council variance is required because commercial uses are not permitted in the R3 residential district. Included in the request is a variance to reduce the required number of parking spaces from 4 spaces to 2. The site is within the planning boundaries of the Near East Area Plan, which does not contain a specific land use recommendation for this location, but does provide guidance for non-residential uses within residential areas. Being that Oak Street is a mixed-use corridor and that the proposed use is of negligible intensity, it provides a community service and is located to the rear of the site, is also confined to the existing footprint of the detached garage. Staff recommends approval. Therefore, the department's recommendation is for approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pine. Do any of my colleagues have any questions at this time from the staff presentation? Okay. Would the applicant's agent like to make a presentation? Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'm going to go ahead and swear you in when you get up here again. Thanks for coming back. Thank you. Please raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer under the pains or penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Please let the record reflect that Mr. Kieran Smith has been sworn in.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank you all for hearing our application again tonight. After our first time we presented, I believe we had some candid and constructive commentary with the 2 public speakers. Although there were some other concerns, I think the main comments seemed to stem from a misconception of the intent of the variance and a frustration with a apparently late notice of the application. On the latter of the notice, we believe they should have received a notice from NEAC sometime last year when we originally had our application. But for whatever reason, they were not received by the speakers. This is understandably frustrating from the perspective, as it would seem as though this was snuck through, which was never our intent. As for any concerns regarding my client, Rhonda Barber is the concerns regarding my client, Rhonda Barber, as the homeowner, I want to reiterate that Lucille Freeman, the one officially listed as the official homeowner, is the client, Rhonda's partner, who have lived together residents for some years now. Rhonda herself has been listed as the owner and has been a resident of the property for over 20 years. In fact, she is listed as the owner on the auditor's records from 1999 to 2020. She's also lived in this house previous to that. Her mother owned the home. She only transferred ownership for purely very personal financial reasons. But as I've said before, she is still the current resident and she will be the only user of this hair salon. Just wanted to reiterate that.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? Just want to ask a quick one. I know one of the questions that we had when we were here last time was just about the parking itself, right? Mm-hmm. Can you just talk about sort of the parking as it relates to this hair salon business?
Yeah, so, I mean, we believe at most there will be 1, maybe 2 cars, actively leaving or coming or going. Just one person waiting, one person actively getting a haircut. As far as what we've changed in the back, the current garage, the homeowners don't actually use it for parking. They park both their 2 vehicles on the street anyway. What we're providing here is we're providing 2 spots in the back, 1 covered, 1 out of the right-of-way on the property. That would be for the personal use. And after talking to the 2 speakers, I believe we're able to compromise to say those personal vehicles would be off the road, so that freeing up those 2 spots for any of the 1 or 2 car clients that would come by.
So in essence, the additional clients would not be adding any additional burden to
That's the goal,
streets.
exactly.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Smith? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any representatives of the of NEAC, the Area Commission, here tonight? I didn't see any, but I just want to make sure before we move on. Seeing none, we do have one public speaker on this ordinance, Ms. Beverly Hodge. Ms. Hodge, welcome back to council. Ms. Hodge, before you begin your comments, I'm going to swear, you beat me to it, thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer under the pains or penalties of perjury? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
Yes, I think I listed all the reasons why I oppose this. I own 1830 Oak Street. I have a problem with when Mr. McCain called me, he said that the Near East Commission voted unanimously. They voted on a fraudulent application. The application says that the owner would be doing the work, and it's not. And he's admitted that it's not the owner, it's a tenant. Now, maybe the tenant was a previous owner, but technically and legally, she is not the owner. And the Near East Side Commission voted for this with the understanding that it would be the owner. And that makes a big difference when you're voting for something. And I think that this application should be resubmitted with the proper wordage, so it's legally done and not based on a fraudulent application. And I know I've met Mr. Smith, I met Ms. Barber, they're very nice people. But I'm with the legality of things, and this should be done properly. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions for Ms. Hodge? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Smith, would you like to provide any rebuttal?
I just want to clarify that this was never meant to be something that was fraudulent or fraud. Certainly, if this is something that is a concern of the record, we've been working on this for over a year now. We've gone to the commission multiple times with them. It never was arisen then. So if it's something, I don't know if that can be amended, on a vote of approval. We would be open to that. I don't really have any alternative for that as well, but I think going back to square one would jeopardize the project at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Ms. Pine, can you speak to what Ms. Hodges sort of talked about, that the discrepancy between the owner, how if at all, does that affect the application?
Yes, I don't believe in this case that there was any written report that the owner of the property was the one that was going to be operating this hair salon. We are looking, at least from the zoning standpoint and city department standpoint, we are looking at it from the use itself, not who's operating the use. And as far as I'm concerned, the Near East Area Commission recommended approval of that use.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Anything further? Ma'am, if you're going to make any comments, I need you to come to the podium. So otherwise, we can't get you on the record.
Okay, I do again. I have the application here, and it states that the owner would be performing the services. Okay, that is what the Near East Commission voted on. And I think they should have an opportunity to vote to know who exactly is going to be performing the services. It may have some bearing on their vote.
Thank you.
Now, I mean, I don't mean that they did anything fraudulently or anything, but this is just legalities, and this is the way it is. Certain terminology means certain things.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge. I appreciate you being here at the last council meeting, at this one tonight. From our standpoint on this committee, we are really considering questions of land use, whether or not they are appropriate or not. The ownership really does not come before this body itself. We have a 12-0 vote from the Near East Side Area Commission. We have, while I understand you're taking issue with the description here, we have someone who is a resident at the property who's going to be operating the business. That was likely communicated to the commission. I do not see an issue with us moving forward at this point. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments before we move forward?
Mr. Chair, I would just second your comments around usage and what this body has to consider this evening with this in front of us. And also note that typically with the support that this received, this variance would have moved forward last week. But for this council slowing it down to make sure that there was appropriate additional community engagement and that we could hear from the folks that were speaking out against that. And so, again, this is one of those process pieces where I think the process has been good. And in terms of what we have to consider as a body, I think that we have all the information and the justification to move forward with a yes vote for this variance.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, I think it's very important for us to emphasize the council is voting on what is before us. There's many other ancillary issues, like we've talked about with the previous variance here tonight, that we may care about and want neighborhood groups to be involved with. That's ultimately not what this council is voting on with a particular piece of legislation. So with that, I would like to move to take this ordinance from the table.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Removed.
Next, I move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Accept it.
Next, I move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Adopt it.
Next, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have variance 1094-2022 to grant a variance provisions of section 3332.03 R1 Residential District and 3312.49 minimum numbers of parking spaces required of Columbus City Codes of property located at 2199 Lilac Avenue to permit a Type A home daycare facility with a reduced parking in the R1 Residential District. The applicant is Esther Jefferson. The proposed use is a Type A home day care facility with a single unit dwelling. City's Department recommendations of approval. The Northland Community Council recommendations of approval 15-0. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Accept it.
Next, I move to adopt the findings of staff, the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Adopt it.
Next, I move to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Amend it.
And finally, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
And finally, in the zoning committee, we have variance 1096-2022 to grant a variance provisions of section 3333.255 perimeter yard of the Columbus City Code, so the property located at 3855 Alcry Road to permit a reduced perimeter yard for an apartment complex in the LARLD, a limited apartment residential district. The applicant is Alcart Woods LLC, care of Jill Tangman, attorney. The proposed use is a multi-unit residential development. City's Department recommendation is approval. The Greater Hilltop Area Commission recommendation is approval 12-0. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Accept it.
Next, I move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Adopt it.
Thank you. And finally, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
That is all we have in the zoning committee this evening. Thank you.
Seeing no further business come for council, is there a motion to adjourn? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Brown, Dorans, Favor, Remy, President Harden.
Passed. Adjourned.